When you watch a movie featuring giant spiders, or a documentary about animal life, or when you notice a fresh web on your kitchen ceiling, you can't help but ask yourself all sorts of questions. Who is Spider-Man? How and why did a spider come into my apartment? Could Spider-Man really exist in real life? How do spiders not stick to their own webs? Why do so many people have a phobia of spiders? In this video, we will answer all these and many other questions, debunk the main myths about spiders, and take a look at the most amazing species of eight-legged creatures. Let's go! Let's start with something simple. Is a spider an insect or not?
Большинство сразу ответит, конечно, насекомое.
However, that's not the case. In the biological classification, they belong to the animal kingdom and are classified as invertebrates. These are arthropods, which, as the name suggests, have jointed limbs and a hard chitinous covering that also serves as a tough external skeleton. If you still think that spiders are insects, here are the main distinguishing features. Spiders have 8 legs, while insects have 2 fewer legs. Insects have 3 body segments, while arachnids have 2. Unlike insects, arachnids do not undergo metamorphosis in their life cycle. Do spiders have spider sense? In comics and movies, Spider-Man has a strange ability. An extra 6th sense called spider sense helps him sense danger. Until recently, this phrase could only be associated with the superhero. But in 2016, scientists discovered that a species of jumping spiders actually has this superpower. Jumping spiders turned out to have incredibly sharp hearing. They can hear what's happening on the opposite side of the room from them, even though they don't have eardrums. This kind of hearing helps them escape from parasitoid wasps. Jumping spiders have learned to hear parasitoid wasps that attack spiders and lay their eggs in them. This is supported by the fact that the hearing of jumping spiders is tuned to maximum sensitivity around 60 Hz, which is the frequency at which wasp wings vibrate. Before this discovery, all entomologists believed that jumping spiders primarily used their giant eyes, which have a built-in super-precise rangefinder, and their sense of touch, which allows them to navigate their surroundings and almost flawlessly jump onto their prey. Since spiders don't have eardrums, they perceive sounds only with the help of ultra-sensitive hairs that cover their bodies. For a long time, there was a belief that members of this order love music. This interesting fact was explained by the observation that spiders would quickly run to the center of their webs as soon as pleasant violin sounds began to play in the house. But of course, it's not about a love for classical music, since they don't have ears. It's about those same sensitive hairs that perceive sound waves. The sensitivity of these organs is so great that they can accurately determine where the vibrations are coming from, determine the distance to their source, and respond to the strength of the vibrations. If the vibrations are too strong, the spider gets scared and quickly runs back to its shelter, while faint vibrations in the web mean an insect has been caught in it. Sound waves coming from the violin bow make the web vibrate, and the excited hunters run out to see who has been caught in their trap. That's why it seems like they enjoy playing musical instruments so much. Why doesn't the spider stick to its own web? While looking at spiders themselves can be unpleasant, and many people are even afraid of them, the webs they create can't help but attract attention and inspire genuine admiration. It resembles delicate lace. On the spider's abdomen, there are silk glands, which are considered to be transformed vestiges of legs. Scientists know of 7 types of silk glands that produce different kinds of silk, and a single individual can have from 1 to 4 types of glands at the same time. Inside the body, a special secretion is produced, which is commonly called liquid silk. As it exits through the spinneret tubes, it begins to harden. One such thread is so thin that it's hard to see even under a microscope. With its legs, which are closer to the glands currently at work, the spider twists several threads into a single web strand, much like women used to do when spinning from a distaff in the old days. It is at the very moment when the spider weaves its web that the main characteristic of the future thread is determined, whether it will be sticky or extra strong. Scientists still haven't determined the mechanism behind this choice. When the first thread is made long enough by its creator, he stops spinning, and the thread catches the breeze. The slightest movement of the wind, even from the heated ground, carries the web thread to a nearby support where it gets caught. Interestingly, spiders are very economical creatures. If the web turns out to be unnecessary, damaged, or old, they eat it, putting the raw material back into use for a second round. And it becomes old quite quickly, since the spider often spins a new web every day. To the question, why does a spider need a web? Everyone, without exception, gives the same answer: for hunting. Yes, of course, spiders make hunting webs out of silk to catch insects. But that's not the only function it serves. Additionally, it is used to insulate burrows before winter, protecting them from cold and moisture. It's also used to create cocoons where offspring mature and for protection from rain. Spiders use it to make a kind of canopy that prevents water from getting into their home. For traveling, some spiders relocate and send their children away from the family nest on long threads of silk, carried by the wind like a parachute. Another use: weaving mats for molting. Different glands produce several types of silk: dry and thick for movement, silky and soft for weaving a cocoon, thin and sticky for the capture spiral. How is it that flies, mosquitoes, and other insects get hopelessly stuck and tangled in the web, while spiders themselves move easily along the thin strands? To avoid getting caught in its own trap, the spider constantly produces a bit of dry thread. He knows very well where the safe areas are. Also, spiders' legs move along the web in a very special way. When a spider's leg touches the web, a sticky droplet from the thread transfers onto the hairs of the spider's leg. And then, when the leg is lifted, it just as easily slides off the hairs back onto the web. It turns out that a spider can't get stuck to its own web because the sticky liquid doesn't come into direct contact with its leg, the threads, or the hairs on the spider's leg. Among other things, spider silk has an interesting property. It can attract water molecules. After all, many of us have admired how the delicate, weightless spiderweb collects the morning dew. This type of surface, capable of condensing moisture, is called hydrophilic. So, what about artificial spider webs? Of course, the idea of using this unique material occurred to people long ago. Scientists believe the ancient Greeks used cocoons as bandages, and fishermen in New Guinea wove the webs of orb-weaver spiders into nets. Back in 1709, François-Xavier Bon de Saint-Hilaire, president of the Court of Accounts, Duties and Finances in Montpellier, France, presented a gift to the Sun King, Louis XIV, a pair of socks made from spider silk, crafted from hundreds of carefully selected cocoons. Now, the only difficulty is the process of obtaining the necessary number of cocoons to make something worthwhile. Bon wrote in a letter addressed to the Royal Society of Britain that same year. And nowadays, even ordinary people have the opportunity to buy an item of clothing made from spider silk. A tie, released in a limited edition of 50 pieces by Bold Threads, a biotechnology company. This company experiments with protein threads obtained from genetically modified yeast. However, for now, these ties aren't stronger than steel, bulletproof, waterproof, highly elastic, or endowed with any other superpowers. Basically, these are just artificial protein fibers. Another company that is working on producing artificial spider silk protein is the Japanese company Spider. To obtain artificial fibroin, genes from the golden orb weaver spider were used, and as a result of their work, the company presented a fabric from which the manufacturer, the North Face, made the world's first jacket from spider silk. However, for now, just like with the ties, all of this seems more like advertising than a truly unique material with any special abilities. There are other examples as well. Take a look at this amazing dress that weighs 1 kilogram. It took several years to create, several 100,000 Madagascar spiders, and a couple of designers with extraordinary imagination. Golden orb weaver spiders live in Madagascar. The name is not accidental. Their webs have an unusual golden color. Designers Simon Pierce and Nicholas Godley decided to create what is perhaps a one-of-a-kind dress, sewn from fabric made of silk from Madagascar spiders. To bring this crazy idea to life, they needed a whole team of professionals who know how to handle insects. They brought in almost 100 people who watched over the spiders during the web spinning season to make sure they didn't eat each other. In total, hundreds of thousands of spiders spun silk for the dress over the course of 3 years. However, the fashion designers didn't invent anything new. They simply reused an existing technique. They used the same technique that existed back in the 19th century. At that time, outfits for members of the royal family in some provinces of Madagascar were woven from similar spider silk using the same technology. However, overall, despite these isolated examples, humanity hasn't been very successful at keeping spiders together in one place. Everywhere in the textile industry, the weaker threads of mulberry silkworms were widely used in the past and are still used today. After all, this domesticated insect turned out to be very convenient to breed. The technology for producing silk from caterpillars was developed a long time ago, but breeding young spiders in a confined space always ended the same way. In the end, they would eat each other. So for now, despite numerous scientific studies and experiments, we still can't talk about high-quality artificial spider silk that even comes close to the properties of the natural one, even though the temptation to use spider silk is very strong. Of course, it can be stronger than steel and more tear-resistant than Kevlar. A person can easily walk through a spider web only because each strand is just 0.003 of a millimeter in diameter. If the diameter were at least a millimeter, then according to calculations, such a web could catch a helicopter just as effectively as it now catches flies. A spider thread long enough to circle the Earth would weigh only 0.5 kilogram. Spiders are skilled chemists. They often give their silk moisture-wicking and antifungal properties. Moreover, scientists using an atomic microscope have seen nanofibers in the structure of spider silk. So spiders are not only chemists, but also real nanotechnologists. A single, ultra-thin thread actually turned out to be a dense rope woven from hundreds of nanofibers. Do you know the secret behind a spider web's constant tension? Just take a look at this footage. Scientists have studied the properties of the silk fibers of Nephila orb weaver spiders, which are known for the large size of their webs. When stretched, the material behaved like an ordinary elastic solid. However, when compressed, scientists observed a different picture. The slack threads wind around droplets of sticky liquid as if onto a spool. So the fibers keep their tension even when compressed by up to 95%. And also, spiders don't need to get visas to travel. Here are a few rather frightening examples. Banana. What will you do if you notice white fluffy spots on one of them? You'll just blame it on mold on the peel. But if you start peeling such a banana, you could literally have hundreds of tiny spiders swarm you. You'll need to call pest control to your home. Because in reality, it's not mold, but a white egg sac. That's how, who would have guessed, Brazilian wandering spiders travel. These cases are rare, as it's now hard for a spider to survive in a bunch of bananas. For export, even to Russia, they are shipped while still green. Otherwise, they wouldn't make it, since the sea journey to us takes at least 3 weeks. They ripen thanks to ethylene gas in special chambers. It is considered to be safe, but the taste still changes. After all, ethylene makes bananas ripen too quickly, and the starch in them doesn't have time to turn into sugar, so the bananas end up tasting like potatoes. Nevertheless, spider exports still happen, and not just Brazilian ones. In July 2018, a woman from Connecticut, USA, found the infamous and deadly black widow spider in a package of grapes. So now you'll be more careful when looking at fruit before you buy it. What causes a person's fear of spiders? Arachnophobia, or the fear of spiders, is one of the most common phobias in the world. However, why did people start being afraid of these creatures in the first place? According to scientists' estimates, about 68% of people in the West and around 24% of people in Asia, Latin America, and Africa suffer from some kind of specific phobia. At the same time, in almost 40% of cases, these fears are related to spiders and other creepy, crawly creatures. According to other estimates, about 5% of the world's population experiences a strong fear of spiders. The very first and most logical hypothesis is that the fear of spiders is a survival mechanism inherited from our ancestors. That is, in ancient times, people, observing the behavior of spiders, decided that they were dangerous to humans. In fact, out of more than 35,000 species of spiders, fewer than 24 are actually venomous. However, scientific studies have supported this theory. In 2017, scientists from the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences discovered that infants' pupils dilate more when they see snakes and spiders. This means that babies experience strong fear in such situations. The second theory suggests that arachnophobia may be caused by a feeling of disgust toward the spider itself. According to several studies, certain features of arachnids are repulsive to humans. For example, the number of legs or eyes, the unpredictability of their movements, and so on. Often, people cannot distinguish between fear and disgust, which results in an inexplicable fear of spiders. Fear and disgust are primarily associated with the large abdomen and enlarged chelicerae, which is what spider jaws are called. A large abdomen visually makes the spider appear bigger. The larger the animal, the more likely it is to be perceived as a threat. And the disgust reaction to an enlarged abdomen can be explained by the fact that in this case, the spider resembles a large tick or other parasites that carry infections. The fear and disgust caused by the chelicerae are usually associated with the potential threat of a bite. Interestingly, Tobey Maguire, who played the role of Spider-Man, is also an arachnophobe. During the process, the actor suffered from nightmares, increased his visits to a psychotherapist, but did not quit filming. To some extent, it became a kind of psychotherapy for him, which allowed Tobey to face his fear. It's not surprising, since exposure therapy is one of the most effective ways to treat arachnophobia. During this kind of therapy, people imagine or observe the object of their fear in real life. But since you don't often encounter a live spider in a doctor's office, specialists from the University of Basel have created an app with augmented reality spiders specifically for such cases. Arachnophobia, like other similar phobias, is not as harmless as it may seem. In its worst stage, it causes an altered state of consciousness. Hallucinations appear. The patient feels like the house is filled with spiders. They attack him from all sides, jumping onto his face, body, and limbs. The arachnophobe is in terror, panic, a state similar to the agony of dying. This disorder is not widespread everywhere. For example, among some tribal peoples, this phobia does not occur at all, and they even eat spiders. For example, in Cambodia, the tarantula is considered a real delicacy, and among certain tribes, these insects were considered sacred and worshipped as idols. In the Peruvian region of Lambayeque, archaeologists discovered a fresco depicting the spider god. In other regions, on the contrary, the disorder is considered one of the common fears. It is believed that the disorder is most common in Western European countries. This statistic is linked to historical background. When the plague epidemic broke out in Europe, people believed that spiders were the carriers of the disease. They were feared and exterminated everywhere. This fear was passed down from generation to generation, surviving to this day. There aren't that many venomous arachnids in Russia. Among them are the karakurt, the tarantula, the water spider, and the orb weaver spider. Only the karakurts have a deadly bite, but they don't attack first. They only show aggression if they feel threatened. Is it possible to be friends with a spider? An encounter with a spider in the wild can end differently, depending on where exactly you meet it and what species it is. But in most cases, spiders in houses and apartments are not only harmless, but even useful. At the very least, the presence of a spider weaving webs in the corners of your home means there's a high chance it has something to hunt. These could be all sorts of insects that you would definitely want to avoid having in your apartment. The most common guests in Russian homes and apartments are the daddy longlegs, wandering spider, jumping spider, and the black and white house spider. Their bites are not dangerous to humans and at most can cause mild burning. The black house spider does have venom, but it's only enough for small insects. For pets, and especially for humans, the spider doesn't have enough venom. So, no matter how you feel about house spiders, they won't be able to cause any harm. Rod Crawford, curator of the arachnid collection at the Museum of Natural History, claims that many house spiders spend their entire lives near humans. Getting rid of spiders from any house is a monumental task. Not only are they clever and stubborn, but they also live with us for a very long time. In fact, many house spiders are specially adapted to such domestic conditions as a constant climate, scarce food, and even a lack of water. Some species of house spiders have been living indoors at least since the time of the Roman Empire, and they are rarely found outside the home even in their native countries. Not everyone is afraid of spiders, but many people try to evict them from their homes. The most common practice involves catching the spider in a cup and then releasing it outside, where many believe it can return to its natural way of life. But while some types of house spiders can survive outdoors, most of them don't make it there. And some that have migrated from other climates die rather quickly if they're taken outside of their protective indoor habitat. We've figured out the friendship between the spider and humans, but why does the spider befriend the tree frog? Looking at this strange pair, you can't help but think that our fellow creatures aren't as primitive as we're used to thinking. The touching friendship between tarantula spiders and tiny frogs might seem completely unbelievable, since spiders are predators and are much larger than their croaking companions. But it turns out that the frog is much more useful to the spider alive than as a meal, and for the frog, such a companion is protection from enemies, so they are always together. Tarantula spiders are quite widespread around the world and can be found on every continent except Antarctica. Of course, not all species of this family are known for their friendship with tiny amphibians, only those that live in humid environments. Such examples of symbiosis can be found in Sri Lanka, as well as in the humid forests of South and North America. The local tarantulas are quite friendly to the microfrogs that live side by side with them and even settle in the same nests. It turns out that these small amphibians feed on the enemies of the spiders. Predatory ants, capable of getting into any, even the tiniest opening, often steal spider eggs and use them for food. A secure shelter doesn't always help, and the spiders themselves, who specialize in larger prey, are unable to deal with such tiny enemies. But microfrogs, on the contrary, really love to feast on ants, which is why they have earned the affection of the giant spiders. The terrifying spiders take care of their little companions, protecting them in every possible way, providing shelter and defending them from predators. In exchange, the frogs guarantee the safety of the spider's future offspring, helping the tarantulas thrive in the tropical forests. But among the enemies of spiders, there are not only ants. For example, assassin bugs are masters of stealthy assassinations in the insect world. This is a large family of bugs that are found all over the world. Their character and way of life match their name. They set up ambushes, then mercilessly kill their unsuspecting prey and suck out their liquid insides by piercing soft tissues with their sharp beaks. But when their prey are spiders, the predator faces an unexpected problem: how to get close to the eight-legged competitor. Most spiders use their webs not only as hunting nets, but also as an amplifier for their sensory system. They have excellent sensitivity to vibrations, and if someone accidentally touches a thread, the spider immediately knows about it. Recently, scientists found out how exactly the predators bypass the spider's alarm systems. The long-legged insect slowly takes the threads of the web with the tips of its legs and carefully stretches them to the sides until they break. After that, they release the ends to minimize any vibrations. This way, they literally cut their way to the prey, while remaining completely invisible to the spider. There are even creepier enemies, for example, wasps that turn spiders into zombies. In the South American jungles lives the social spider Anolosimus eximius. These small arthropods live in colonies ranging from a few hundred to several thousand individuals. Working together, they weave huge hunting webs covering dozens of square meters and kill any prey that gets caught in them. And these can include not only flies and mosquitoes, but also small birds. A large web is effective because it allows them to catch bigger prey, which then plays a significant role in feeding the colony. The spiders share their prey, allowing them to live comfortably. Although their way of life resembles that of ants, termites, and other colonial insects, there is no strict division of roles into queen, soldiers, and workers in a spider colony. But some individuals distance themselves from the colony, build cocoon-like structures out of rolled leaves and silk, then freeze nearby and die. And wasps emerge from the cocoons and, after flying out, usually do not stray far from their native spider colony. Adult wasps try to lay their egg directly on the spider. The larva that hatches from it penetrates the spider's body, and after some time takes control of its behavior, forcing the spider to perform such unusual actions. The reproduction of spiders begins with a mating ritual, as is often the case in the animal world. All the tricks of the male individuals are aimed at winning the female over, and in some cases, at preventing her from eating them prematurely. The courtship methods of males are quite diverse. Some species hypnotize the female with rhythmic movements of their legs, twitching their abdomen. Peacock spiders from the jumping spider family display a colorful fan on their abdomen. The male caracourt spider tugs on the female's web threads in a certain rhythm, as if ringing a doorbell. But male philodromid spiders decided not to bother, and before mating, they immobilize the females with venom and tie them up with silk. This allows them to fertilize the females calmly, without risking being eaten. For the female spiders, temporary paralysis doesn't leave them unaffected. After recovering from the venom, they can't hunt properly for some time. And you can also give gifts to the female spiders. A vivid example of this is Pissora mirabilis, also known as the nursery web spider. Before mating, the male gives the female a gift, usually an insect wrapped in silk. And while the female unwraps and eats it, the male mates with her. The female is a very caring mother. First, she carries a huge egg sac, and just before the eggs hatch, she weaves a nest where the tiny spiderlings are born, and she protects them for some time. That's exactly why this species is called the nursery spider in English. However, female spiders are not always so caring. Sometimes they just eat their own offspring. For example, they started eating their young because of global warming. As a study by biologists from Washington University in St. Louis showed, this is exactly the scenario used by Arctic wolf spiders to regulate their population numbers. First, due to favorable conditions, the females increased in size, and then, naturally, they began to produce more offspring. And since the population size increased, competition for food became more intense, and the strong began to eat the weak in order to survive. But most often, it is the young that are considered weak, and they are devoured by their own mother. But let's get back to reproduction. After the mating ritual, mating takes place. Before the final molt, which marks the complete maturation of the male, the ends of the pedipalps become reservoirs for seminal fluid. The spider weaves a web and squeezes sperm from its reproductive glands onto it. The web with the genetic material is placed into the copulatory, mating appendage of the pedipalp, called the embolus. When the female accepts the male's courtship, the embolus is inserted into a special opening in the abdomen called the spermatheca. It often happens that the sperm reservoir breaks off, making the male unable to fertilize more than one female. After several weeks, from 1 to 23 weeks, depending on the species, fertilization occurs in the female's abdomen, and then she lays the eggs through the oviduct, placing them in an egg sac to protect them from enemies and to maintain the optimal temperature. The egg sac is woven from spider silk and is usually about the same size as the female spider. A spider's clutch contains from a single egg in microscopic spiders to 1,000 eggs in tarantulas. On average, a clutch contains 20, 30, sometimes 50 fertilized eggs. The shape of the egg sac can be completely different. It can be spherical, conical, pyramidal, or star-shaped. Or, for example, like this one. A structure consisting of a central vertical tower and a fence built around it was called the silk Stonehenge. The function of the little fence around the tower with spider eggs is still not fully understood. It is possible that it serves as a net for catching small mites, which could be the first food for the newly hatched spiderling, since mites were found crawling on and inside the little fence in the discovered structures. Or maybe it's a barrier to protect against ants that want to eat the spider eggs, or camouflage that disguises the structure as mushrooms or lichen. What happens to spiderlings in the egg sac? During the development stage of spiders inside the egg sac, the first molt happens inside the egg. The newborn spiderling feeds on the egg yolk. This stage has a very interesting name, the prolarva. Then another molt occurs, and the spiderlings turn into first-stage nymphs. Their coverings are still very thin and cannot protect them from the external environment, so development continues inside the cocoon. After 35 weeks, a second-stage nymph larva appears. Such an individual still cannot feed on its own, but claws on the legs and chelicerae are already developing. The next molt is considered post-embryonic. The little spiders grow increasingly active. With the tiny spines on their pedipalps, they tear open the cocoon and emerge into the world. The newly hatched spiderlings initially stay in a cluster, then scatter. Female tarantulas, for example, open their own cocoons to help the young get out. The cocoon of the Argiope, however, has very thick walls, and the spiderlings dissolve part of the cocoon using enzymes contained in their saliva. What color is spider blood? The blood itself is colorless and consists of hemolymph. Spiders don't have veins or blood vessels, so they have an open circulatory system. Spider blood gets its blue color due to the high content of hemocyanin in the hemolymph, and hemocyanin in turn contains copper, so in sunlight it takes on a bluish tint. And here's another interesting question. Who would win, a spider or a snake? Logically, it would be the snake. However, out of 319 spider versus snake encounters analyzed by scientists, the spider managed to kill the snake in 87% of cases. Take a look at this footage. It's not just big and scary tarantulas that kill snakes, but as many as 40 different species of spiders. The spider family that includes the black widow turned out to be the record holder. During the study, it killed more snakes than any other. How do spiders eat their prey? The most interesting thing about spider physiology is their digestion. At the first contact with their prey, they inject a toxin that kills the captured victim. It may die immediately, or it may convulse for a while. After the movement stops, the second and most interesting stage begins: external digestion. In most animals, digestive enzymes break down food in the stomach, but in this order, the mechanism is completely different. A substance similar to gastric juice is injected into the prey's body, dissolving all the organs of the insect. After its soft tissues have been broken down, the hungry hunters suck up the nutritious solution. Males don't eat much, so they grow slowly. Females, on the other hand, have an excellent appetite. In 24 hours, she can eat an amount of food equal to her own weight. Human and Spider. The new installment of the Spider-Man cinematic universe, No Way Home, introduced new features and plot twists. But if you look at the overall picture of the Spider-Man movies, the main things usually remain: wall crawling, web shooting from his hands, super strength, and enhanced hearing. But what would this mutant actually look like in real life? Let's start with the fact that Peter Parker was bitten by a spider. After a short time, the guy discovered he had superpowers. Because the spider was radioactive, its venom contained mutagenic substances. If you look at it from a scientific point of view, radiation can certainly change DNA. But first of all, it doesn't necessarily spread to all cells. Secondly, it's impossible to predict which of the 20,000 genes it will affect. Mutation is a multi-step process, which is why it's slow. That's why, instead of superpowers, Parker would most likely end up with a big, ugly, cancerous tumor. Next, in order to quickly move along vertical walls, Spider-Man's body would need to be 40% sticky. Scientists who studied geckos and mites, which can cling to surfaces, concluded that in real life, Spider-Man would only be able to move along walls if he had huge feet and hands. For example, the superhero would have to wear size 145 shoes. British and American scientists actually took the time to calculate this. Disproportionately huge limbs would make Spider-Man clumsy. Acrobatic stunts would be out of the question. And for dessert, in order to synthesize that much web, Spider-Man would need to have special giant glands on his body. But the fact that spiders can shoot webs over long distances is true. In Madagascar, spiders have been discovered whose abilities can be called superhero-like. To have someone name you after the most famous biologist, you really have to try hard. You need to impress zoologists, who regularly write about unusual and little-known subjects. Darwin's spider, as you might have guessed, succeeded. In 2002, a group of scientists was rafting down one of Madagascar's many forest streams. They all ended up with their faces in webs. The web turned out to be impressive, about 12 meters long. It stretched across the river and was covered with dozens of insect bodies. The biologists wondered why they hadn't found this beauty earlier and began looking for the creators of the mysterious giant webs. It was just a tiny spider, less than 3 centimeters long. Darwin's spider, as amazing as it is just one of the many astonishing spiders that we are about to show you. Here's another sniper, for example. The slingshot spider catches its prey using a conical web as its tool. The web has a tension line running through the center, which the tiny spider pulls with its hind legs. When food comes within reach, the spider quickly catapults itself with its web, wrapping the prey in silk. And this is a pelican spider. For a long time, pelican spiders were considered extinct, and only recently scientists managed to discover several living species of these amazing creatures. The elongated mouth parts, which form the so-called beak, help the spiders during hunting. They capture their prey and hold it at a safe distance until the venom paralyzes it and it dies. This tarantula is called the king baboon spider. It is famous for its aggressive temperament, and its venom, although not deadly to humans, can cause pain for several days after a bite. This species, when sensing any threat, moves backward and rubs its legs together, making a sound that serves as a final warning before an attack. Despite this, they don't really try to bite people. The leg span of this spider can reach approximately 20 centimeters. They mainly feed on insects, birds, mice, and small birds. Unlike bird-eating tarantulas, which are intimidating solely because of their size, making them the largest spiders on our planet, wolf spiders can cause serious harm to humans. Fortunately, their venom does not have a paralytic or necrotic effect. The redback spider, which is also called the Australian widow after its original habitat, later spread to all continents except the poles. The concentration of toxins in its venom is not enough to kill a human, but after being bitten, you will spend quite a few unpleasant minutes with bouts of vomiting, increased sweating, dizziness, and general weakness. Six-eyed sand spider. At the moment, science does not know the name of the necrotic toxin that accumulates in the spider's fangs, but its effect is well known. The venom gradually destroys the walls of blood vessels and red blood cells. Because the six-eyed sand spider is found exclusively in the deserts of South America and Africa, only 2 cases of fatal encounters with this arthropod have been recorded in medical literature. The victims of the bite eventually died from internal bleeding. Sydney funnel web spider. This spider is known for its highly aggressive nature and can attack any person who comes into its field of vision. The venom contained in its fangs is deadly to primates and humans. It causes paralysis of the nervous system and lungs. The spider's habitat is the area around Sydney. It's a circle with a radius of 100 kilometers. The Sydney spider likes to get into houses to spin a web in cool, quiet places. Fortunately, the antidote for its bite is kept in every Australian hospital. So since it was invented in 1891, doctors haven't recorded a single death. Brown recluse spider residents of northern Mexico and the southern states of the U.S. should be very careful when encountering the brown recluse, also known as the violin spider. Its venom has a necrotic effect, and, depending on the amount injected into a person's bloodstream, can cause anything from mild inflammation to deep tissue necrosis or even death. North American black widow. This name has long been associated with some of the most dangerous animals in the world. However, over the past 100 years, only 13 people have died from a black widow bite, and before the antidote was synthesized in 1908, About 1 in 20 people bitten would die. The black widow's venom spreads through the lymphatic system, causing blood antibodies to activate and triggering an allergic reaction. You can encounter the black widow in the USA, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The Brazilian wandering spider. Among the most venomous creatures on the planet, these are probably the fastest and most agile jumpers. Their venom, combined with their ability to sneak unnoticed into bags, pockets, cars, and even homes, poses a huge threat to the residents of South and Central America. The venom of this species in most cases does not lead to death, as 97.7% of those bitten survive. However, muscle paralysis, which can lead to suffocation, is a very nasty thing, and men also risk developing sexual dysfunction after encountering the Brazilian wandering spider. Northern tree funnel-web spider. This is the largest species of funnel-web spider in Australia. Sensing any kind of threat, these large spiders, like in a Hollywood horror movie scene, rear up and bare their fangs, which often drip with venom. In most cases of bites, the victim develops symptoms similar to severe poisoning, but experts believe that this spider can indeed be deadly. Karakurt, or the steppe black widow, is a small 2-centimeter spider from the black widow genus that produces dangerous protein-based neurotoxins. You will feel the bite of the karakurt immediately. It is accompanied by sharp pain, which spreads throughout the body within half an hour. Symptoms of poisoning such as weakness, dizziness, and vomiting can last for several days. In particularly severe cases, the victim falls into a deep depression, and their consciousness becomes clouded. Without timely assistance, the victim dies after about 5 days. There is good news. Only female black widow spiders are dangerous, and they are much larger than the microscopic males. The yellow sac spider is known for its yellowish-beige abdomen. Its size ranges from 3 to 9 millimeters. It is considered responsible for most spider bites in the world. Needless to say, its bite is extremely painful. The necrotic venom damages the skin, causing it to die off. The skin itches and develops blisters. Fortunately, it prefers to live far away from humans. Chinese bird-eating spider. The Chinese bird-eating spider is the largest spider in Asia. It can be found in Vietnam and China. Here, it tops the list of venomous spiders. It has a golden-brown color and can reach up to 20 centimeters in length. The Chinese bird-eating spider lives in burrows, which it leaves only to hunt. The spider's venom contains a neurotoxin that paralyzes its prey. In addition, it is so dangerous that even in small doses it poses a threat to small animals. Chilean recluse spider. We have already mentioned recluse spiders, and now let's welcome another representative of the species, the Chilean recluse spider. They can reach up to 4 centimeters in length. These spiders are found in South America, Chile, Peru, Argentina, and Brazil. As a rule, the Chilean recluse spider does not show aggression towards humans. However, they can bite a person if they end up on their skin. The consequences of a bite range from mild irritation to necrosis of skin cells and other affected organs. The smiling spider got its name because of its perpetually content facial expression. These little spiders, which reach only 5 millimeters in length, can be found in the tropical forests of Hawaii. These spiders look very different from their surroundings. Although they always look happy, they live in unbearable conditions. Over the years, the smiling spiders have adapted to extreme heat. Scientists have observed these spiders in the crater of a volcano and even in the lava itself. But currently, this species of spider is on the verge of extinction, which is why it has been included in the Red Book. Mirror spider. The abdomen of these tiny rare creatures, which live in the eucalyptus forests of Australia and Singapore, is covered with tiny mirror-like plates, which is why these spiders got their name. The size of the mirror-like plates on these spiders depends on their emotional and physical condition. While moving, the plates contract and look like a spot. When at rest, they stretch out, covering most of the abdomen. After an hour of rest, the mirror-like plates cover almost the entire surface of the spider's body, and after some more time, they almost merge together. Peacock spider, or Maratus. This is a species of jumping spider and an endemic. Maratus is native to Australia. It lives in such Australian states as Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. It got its name because of the bright coloring on the abdomen of the male spiders. Just like a peacock, the male raises its fan and uses it to attract the attention of the female, who has very sharp eyesight, like most jumping spiders. Also, to attract the attention of the opposite sex, the peacock spider often stands on its hind legs and starts jumping. Another similarity with the peacock is that the male spider courts several females at the same time. In general, jumping spiders, which are completely harmless to humans, have a number of cute and slightly amusing features. For example, during the mating season, they dance very energetically, raising their short silvery legs up. They also have an interesting coloration, combining shades of blue, gray, green, purple, and even orange. There are bright spots on their limbs that look like smiley faces. Jumping spiders fully live up to their name. Despite their size, they can jump up to 1.5 meters high. Interestingly, newborn spiderlings, like adults, have 4 pairs of eyes and the same number of photoreceptors, but theirs are smaller and packed much more tightly. It takes human children 35 years for their eyes to reach the sharpness of adult eyes. But spiderlings can see just as well as their parents right after hatching from the nest. That's why they can track and catch prey just as effectively as adults. The striped hunter is a species of spider from Europe, belonging to the wandering spider family. Striped hunters can be found in various European countries, where they live near water in floodplain meadows and lowland swamps. The striped hunter has long, thick legs with large spines. Among the interesting features of this species is the striped hunter's ability to run quickly on water and dive into it. While hunting, the spiders sit still for a long time, with their hind legs on vegetation and their front legs on the surface of the water. And this is one of the rarest species of spiders from the orb weaver family. It lives only in caves in the state of Texas, where it is an endemic species. The spider is not venomous, and because it lives in caves, it has no eyes and has a semi-transparent body. The first specimen was discovered in one of the caves in Bexar County, and the second specimen was spotted by workers in Texas while they were building a local highway. And just imagine, after the workers came across the arthropod, the local authorities decided to suspend work on the highway so as not to harm the rare species and not to disturb its natural habitat. Hourglass spider. A few years ago, a farmer from the Chinese province of Chuan found a spider on his orange farm that was known even in the time of Confucius. At first, he didn't even believe it was a living spider and thought the find was an ancient work of art. After figuring out what it was, the farmer called all his neighbors who gathered to see the unusual creature. Later, the farmer found out through the internet that he had managed to discover an extremely rare arthropod, the Chinese hourglass spider. The spider got its name because of its unique body shape. For a long time, these spiders were considered extinct and were only rediscovered in the year 2000. Since then, people have only seen them 6 times, because most of the time, the spiders spend most of their time in underground burrows sealed with peculiar lids. Scorpion-tailed spider. This spider got its name because of the unusual abdomen of the female, which ends with a peculiar appendage resembling a scorpion's tail. When the spider feels threatened, it curls its tail and resembles a scorpion. It is noteworthy that this rarity is found only in females, and they live in colonies, although each female spider builds her own web and does not risk encroaching on the territory of other females. The 8-spotted crab spider is one of the brightest, most unusual and rarest spiders in the world. In appearance, this bright yellow spider with black spots looks like some kind of children's toy or a cartoon character. This spider was discovered in a forest reserve in Singapore in 1924. Currently, it is very rarely encountered by people, which leads scientists to think that this unusual species may be on the verge of extinction. The whip spider lives in Australia. Its long and slender body resembles a snake, which is where its species name comes from, meaning snake-like. Its unusual appearance is an example of camouflage. By resembling a small stick caught in a web, the whip spider easily escapes the attention of most predators and has an easier time catching its prey. Ladybird spider. It can be found from Western Europe to the Novosibirsk region. Spiders of this species are rarely seen because they lead a secretive lifestyle. They live in burrows and crevices, in the soil and under stones. They tightly wrap their shelter with webs, weaving in pieces of leaves for camouflage. The females almost never leave their homes. The males live in the shelter for 2.5 years, after which they set out in search of a new female. In fact, it's these movements of the males that are the only chance for scientists to encounter these spiders. Now, take a look at this. The little one's front legs are twice as long as the rest of its body. This spider has a secret trick that makes it similar to chameleons. They are able to change their color. In the wild, this species almost always remains a delicate greenish color to blend in with the dense tropical forests. Only their slightly surprised eyes, usually a few shades lighter than their body, stand out against the background. Well, this spider is the dream of many kaleidoscopes. It's very hard to find, since they live high up in the canopies of tropical trees. Their coloring is dominated by a rich blue hue with a metallic sheen, adorned with a white pattern that's unique to each spider. This subspecies of tarantula is very active, can run fast, and even jump. Combined with its toxic and aggressive venom, this makes it extremely dangerous, not just beautiful and attractive. And this is a little spider named Bagheera. Green eyes, just like spiders. They literally look right into your soul. They come in all colors and patterns, from dark brown to bright yellow. These exotic guys also eat in a rather unusual way. They're not interested in other insects. Instead, they prefer grass and other plants that contain enough vitamins to maintain the optimal balance of substances in their tiny spider bodies. The diving bell spider, or water spider. This unusual species of spider inhabits the vast territory of Eurasia, from Portugal to Japan. It's unusual because it's the only spider in the world whose habitat is water. It can live and move on land, but it does so very rarely. The water spider, Argyroneta, breathes oxygen obtained from atmospheric air, just like all members of this class. To capture air, it rises to the surface of the water. Then it dives down to its nest, carrying with it a film of air that envelops the animal's body. The spiders build their homes out of their own web. They make it funnel-shaped, about the size of a pigeon egg. They attach this air bell to the web, which they stretch between underwater plants. Inside this air bell, air bubbles are stored, which are necessary for the spiders to breathe. These spiders lead a strictly nocturnal lifestyle. When it starts to get dark, the spiders leave their nests and go out to hunt. It feeds on small fish and crustaceans, on insect larvae. The diving bell spider hunts in a peculiar way. It stretches its web between the stems and leaves of algae and hides in its nest. The venom of the water spider is the third most potent after the venom of the tarantula and the Mediterranean black widow. And now take a look at this portrait. This is a repeat offender from the Deinopeidae family. He doesn't just watch for prey passing below with a pair of such enlarged eyes, but actually hunts by sound. Not exactly, of course. After all, he doesn't have ears. But he attacks over his head and catches insects flying above him with his web, even without seeing them. During the day, ogre-faced spiders hide among the leaves or in thick grass. And when night falls, they start preparing to hunt. They weave a peculiar web trap, which is shaped like a square and is no bigger than a postage stamp. When the trap is ready, the spider hangs from a branch or a blade of grass not far from the ground, spreads the woven mat with its two front pairs of legs, and freezes in anticipation of its prey, which can be ants, beetles, grasshoppers, and even other spiders. As soon as a suitable target crawls over the location of the gladiator spider, it swiftly covers the unsuspecting insect with its carefully woven net. During the strike, the net stretches to 2 or 3 times its original size. And thanks to these spiders' ability to sense the direction and strength of air currents, they sometimes even manage to catch flying night moths in their sticky nets. Sometimes the size of the prey matches the size of the hunter. After the prey is caught, the spider wraps it with extra webbing for security and then begins its meal. And this is also a spider, strangely enough. Ant mimicry is related to the aggressiveness and venomousness of these numerous social insects, which can protect other similar arthropods from being eaten by predators, birds, and wasps. Or here's the long-horned orb weaver spider. It weaves a web in the shape of a perfect circle and does this every day. And this is the wraparound spider. Its ability to hide in plain sight is enhanced by the fact that its outer shell strikingly resembles tree bark. The good news is that the wraparound spider's venom is not dangerous. Like most other spiders, the wraparound spider is more active at night and comes alive in the dark. Before the sun rises, the spider destroys its web and takes its position on the branch again to hide during the day. And these are the kinds of interesting arachnid species that live on our planet. These amazing creatures truly deserve special attention. And every year, scientists discover more and more interesting features in different species of arachnids. That's all for today. Thank you for watching this film. Like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends. See you in future episodes on Cremola.